New Styles Peak.
What up, what up, what up, and what up? Salute to my brothers.
Absolutely.
Gunner,
what up?
Gunner,
Tag, what up?
My brother Tag.
What we doing,
Make
OG
sure you
Wisdom?
check out the OG Wisdom podcast. You know what I mean? You're in it live and raw from the Val Lagoon. Good show, my niggas. I love y'all.
Most of our leaders come out of organizations. You have to be a part of an organization to be an effective leader. But how do we determine if you're an effective leader if you don't organize the people? You can't just grab the mic or your phone, get on YouTube and say, yo, I'm a good leader because I think I'm a good leader. You have to have a track record of organizing people, setting goals and agendas and getting them done.
Yeah. Politicians I don't really like. Activism is different because, you know, you got a goal. It has nothing to do with politics. When you are activist, you know, it's for your people.
Make sure y'all get ready to tune in to my brother, my big brother, C Gutter and Tad, new podcast, OG Wisdom. Better tune in to that. A lot of jewels, a lot of knowledge, a lot of lifestyle, a lot of street talk, a lot of hood tales, real stories. Check it out. OG Wisdom, Tad, C Gutter.
Peace, family. Peace. Welcome to another episode of the OG Wisdom Podcast with me, your brother Tad. Our brother C Gutter out on assignment. But for those who've been following us for a minute, this brother here is no stranger. Our brother Siraj across the pond in London. Brother Siraj, what's the word?
Yeah, peace, brother Tad. I hope all is well. Basically, I'm just sending a shout out to all the brothers and sisters who have been supporting OG Wisdom and all the brothers and sisters who are tuning in today to feed that information in from today's show.
All right. For those who may not know, our brother Siraj has a Man in the Mirror project with his deal with mental health with Black men. And I think it's very fitting today that he's our guest because today's topic is, are Black men whipping boys still, or are we Superman? And as brother Siraj talk about his project and his tour, his U.S. tour, because he'll be here very soon, we're going to dive deep into what is Black men's position in society today. Are we still whipping boys of the days of slavery? Or are we Superman, this fictitious being that has to solve the world's problems? So we definitely like to hear from y'all. If you're on YouTube, please hit the chat. Instagram, you can still leave comments on Instagram, though it's kind of hard to monitor that right now. But brother Siraj, I want to welcome you. Black men, are we still whipping boys? What is your thoughts on that?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a combination of both when it comes to Black men. Are we still being whipped? You know, obviously, if you're basically taking a deep dive into the history from butt breaking, even with, you know, today, where, you know, there are brothers out there who are taking the lead to, you know, organize and, you know, create these initiatives, whether they're like rites of passage initiatives or, you know, these initiatives to help the Black man with their own personal self-development. So I think it's a combination of both. It really, you know, we see different examples out there, but, you know, as Black men, we should get to that point where we can identify where we fit in. Are we you know, and it's not not every Black man are able to admit that, you know, we're going through that vulnerability of, you know, we're still being whipped. Not every Black, you know, because of our egos. You know, our egos are not always going to allow us to be honest. You know, what position, where do you fit in? You know,
Right. So you mentioned buck breaking. For those who may not know, explain what buck breaking is and what was the significance in our development today.
Yeah. So I'm so basically how, you know, brothers were treating back in the day in regards to the times of the plantation, where the slave master was basically I don't want to use the word indulging, but just engaging in certain sexual acts and emasculating emasculating the black man, even emasculating the black man in front of the black woman, and performing these sexual acts.
Yes, the sexual acts. So when I ask, are we still whipping boys? We see what happens when you express an independent thought, such as our brother Kanye. Whether you agree with him or not, everybody has a right to express themselves and how they view what they want for their life. We can see what's happening in the Puff. I mean, there are things we have to be accountable for. But in everyday black men, we see if we're not arguing with our significant other at home, we may be arguing with the supervisor at work, or may not get the respect of our children. Well, let me just finish part of the buck breaking process, because many people don't know. And in fact, I was reading a book. I haven't finished it. It's horrible. It's called The Delectable Negro. And it talks about human consumption. What many people don't know, what happened during our enslavement was we were also eaten by some of these people. It may sound crazy, but this is true. Something they don't talk about during the lynchings. There's another book called Without Sanctuary, A History of Lynchings in America. We were hung, right? Not only were we hung, we were mutilated and cooked. When you see them on the fire, they don't show what happened to the people afterwards. We were humiliated. And these things has a psychological effect on how we rear our children. So for generation to generation, particular behaviors have been passed down. And every time a black man steps up to be the proverbial Superman, whether it be Dr. King, we just celebrated Malcolm's birthday, Medgar Evers, Nat Turner, you name them, they were eliminated. They were deleted. The buck breaking process is so prevalent that people negate that because they're unfamiliar with it. There's also an article, if you got a pen and paper or just Googling your phone, it's called The Willie Lynch Letter, also known as Let's Make a Slave. Things to keep us divided. I'm glad you brought up the buck breaking process, because as we see the privation of sexual expression, I'll say, due to the alphabet community's representation, those things are not really what black men promote or we celebrate. However, the Times now puts that image in front of us as this is now the newfound representation of black men. Seldom do you see a strong black man like a Dr. Khaled or Malcolm X put in front of us. Seldom do you see an intellectual like a Dr. Ben, a Dr. Clark, a Dr. Amos Wilson put in front of us, or even a Dr. Bobby Wright. People that had a critical analysis of where we fit as black men in this society that leaks over in all areas, right? And then manifests itself in what's called urban culture via hip hop or even fashion, where you got grown men dressing like 3-year-old boys with little rompers and toddler suits. Shout out to Jermaine Dupri and his lollipop outfit he had on at one of the award shows. The thing is that we've been broken down so bad that when strong black men who are halfway sane, just halfway sane, speak against it, we are attacked and again become the proverbial whipping boy. You do a lot of work around mental health. What has happened to us in your analysis that has made us sink so far for black men to not want to stand up and be strong black men in some areas of life?
Well, once again, it goes back to it goes back to the time of slavery. It's still the only difference now. It's a upgraded system. We're still basically we're still suffering from the effects from it. And I'm not saying that with every black person out there. every African out there, but this system, it has a way of pushing their agenda, which has an effect on the subconscious mind. And when it has that effect on the subconscious mind, it's like a chant, you know. It's like it's that programming where it's almost like no matter what, we still, it's that chant is something where it's almost like the Pied Piper, you know. The Pied Piper, you know, when he's chant, when he's using the flute and so forth, when he's using that kind of psychological kind of programming, psychological tool. So yeah, this is psychological warfare, and they use it through also the advertising and marketing, which are, you know, where they spend billions in. And you know, when you're looking at certain billboards or, you know, commercials,
yes,
you know, whether it's commercials of interracial relationships and stuff, or, you know, anything promoting the alphabet community or whatever the case may be, this is just something where they are pushing out there like it's the norm. So when they're pushing it out there like the norm, a lot of brothers and sisters will follow that. You know, they will follow that. They will follow the programming because they just think that's
you gave me a thought real quick. You gave me a thought, and please, audience, I'm not a know-it-all. Please, far from it. However, a lot of points I'm going to give you reference, guys, because I've done some extensive reading as a black man. I've done a lot of reading and studying. So what our brother's talking about in terms of billboards and television program, there's a book I suggest you read called Brainwash by a good brother named Tom Burrell. Please, again, anytime you get up on here, please get your pen and pad down, because we're not going to be talking just to talk. We're going to give you references, all right, because there's so much to uncover. We're talking about centuries, if not millennials of oppression and disrespect, disregard, and erasing and covering up of history. So Tom Burrell, the programming. Also, a lot of things we say may be surface level because I want you to go deeper. So I'll bring up Chicago, right? The violence epidemic that takes place in Chicago. Would you say this is part of the programming? Because some may say, well, it's us killing us in these communities. If you look at Los Angeles, you look at Brooklyn, you look at Chicago, even in the UK, it's us doing it to us. It's not the white man. What do you say to that?
We say it in regards to us doing it to us. Hold on, let me.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know, at the end of the day, you have to look at the environment. You know, a lot of these environments, you know, whether we call them projects, and you have similar environments worldwide, which was obviously an experiment. These when you're in an environment, which resembles poverty. When your environment resembles poverty, you become a product of that environment. You know, so if you're looking around at your environment, it's not like you're in these affluent, you in certain areas where you know, you like some brothers and sisters have not grown up in maybe suburban environments or so forth. So when you're in these environments, you are gonna adapt or adopt the lifestyle which you see, which is presented in front of you. So if you're gonna see, you know, black on black crime, that's what you're gonna experience. I'm not saying for everyone, but you know, if you're not showing, if these young brothers are not shown another way, you know, if they're not taken out in the environment, then how do we expect them to see things differently? How do you expect them to rise above that? You know? You know, there's certain brothers out there who fortunately had the opportunity to travel, and that could have been maybe because they've been in whether they're in the military or they had parents who were born overseas and decided to kind of show them where their lineage, where they come from, you know, whether they're taking them back home to the islands or the continent or stuff. But if you ain't taken out on the environment, or you don't travel, some people don't even travel outside their geographical location. So
it's funny you say that, because part of Nipsey Hussle, who's one of my favorite rappers, and I always say this, I hate that I got onto Nipsey after his transition because the generational thing. But that was Nipsey's awakening, because his father's from the continent, I believe Eritrea. He was able to go back home and realize that there is a place in the world where Black people do live together. There's familial hierarchy, you know, where grandma and grandpa's at the top, then the parents, then the children, and even amongst the children, it's the older brother, then the younger siblings. That's why he had such a high regard for his big brother, Black Sam, because he was a good big brother to Nipsey. But that was, to your point, that was the paradigm shift for Nipsey, being raised in California, being in that gang culture environment, to where you're saying, you know, if you're in that environment, chances are you're going to adopt those behaviors, because that is the key to help you survive. I mean, there's a thought process by an old psychologist named Abraham Maslow, and it's called the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and it talks about people's needs. And when people's needs are not met, that creates conflict. We all have physiological needs. That's food, air, and water. And then we have our safety needs, you know, shelter, clothing, things like that. Then we have our need to belong. You know, then we have our need to belong. And this is where things get tricky, in our need to belong, because now our value system starts to kick in order for us to meet them other two needs. You know, your value system changes with your group, because here you have one group, which is your home life, your family, that has a particular set of rules. But then here's your other group outside, your gang, your church, your classmates in school, whatever is going on, whatever group you belong to outside of your family. So now you got to put these dynamics on the scale. So now, do your family values weigh more than your outside of the family group, or do your outside family group weigh more than your family values? And this will determine how you move to get those other two needs met, your clothing and your shelter and your food. And then even then you have another layer on top of your group setting, which is called your self-esteem. Where do you fit in the group? In the family, are you the big brother that everybody listens to, or are you Cinderella in the house? Same thing that goes on with your outside group. If you in the gang, let's see, are you the OG, are you the shot caller, or you the dude who got to go get the blunts and stuff and roll the weed? So now your esteem is in a balance of where you are in the group. And then we come to the top of the pyramid, which is self-actualization. Who are you? Who are you? The way you see yourself determine how you operate in any group of settings. So that's why I say, are we the whipping boy or are we Superman? Because now in the whipping boy in society, you can be the chump. You can be the punk. You can succumb to the pressure of constantly getting pulled over by the police. You could come to the pressures of dating in your culture, or even dating outside of your culture, which is a whole different conversation. Where are you in home? And this is something I think Black men have to deal with, because in order for us to go from the whipping boy to Superman, we have to have honest conversations of who we are and why would we even want those positions. You know, you're doing a project on psychology and how it affects us as Black men, which in turns affect our community. Because if we don't feel that life is treating us fair or society's not treating us right, hurt people hurt other people. So if I feel I'm hurt outside of the home, what do I do with all that pain? I take it home and unload it on my wife, on my children. Shit, I might kick the dog. You know what I mean? But if I'm loved and appreciated in society, it's such a good feeling. I want other folks to feel this feeling. So I'll go encourage people, lift them up, lift their spirits. And again, dealing with the programming, because we're in a society that give us a skewed view of history that makes us think our history started with slavery, so that we're relegated to slavery. And anybody who was a leader got knocked off And even then, let's use Dr. King, so to speak. Even with Dr. King, we got painted that he was a coward. And Dr. King was far from a coward. He was one of the bravest freedom fighters we ever had. And I only say this because you got to have a special kind of courage to go in a community where you know you're hated and they will kill you, rather delete you. Keep forgetting YouTube, you can't use certain words. Knowing they will delete you and you have no intentions to fight back. That's a special kind of courage. I don't have that kind of courage. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm going in the ops hood, I'm taking that thing with me. Let's be clear. I believe in my creator, and I believe my creator gave me the wherewithal to use a force multiplier, I like to call it, to guard you now. So I say these things, right, brother, because as we move forward, as OGs, and shout out to our brother C. Gutter, who's out on assignment today, as we try to move our community forward, how do we save our folks? We see the violence is so prevalent. Like you said, they adopt the behaviors they see in society. With you doing mental health work, from a grassroots level, just being honest with your story, how do we get through to young brothers to let them know that those guys that look like you are not your enemy? What are some strategies? And real quick, right, to the audience, if you're on YouTube, I want you to chime in as well. Give us some ideas, clues, solutions. Give us your thoughts and observations on this conversation. But go ahead, brother.
Well, as Dr. Amos Wilson said, you know, the black man still does not recognize his power and need to raise his level of consciousness so as to reclaim his identity, thereby reclaiming his African pride, his black power. So it's about, you know, that making that connection. You know, it's about it's about you know, it's about us taking a responsibility to reconnect with our culture, because that culture, you know, that culture has birthed certain morals. You know, it's birthed certain morals, and it's given that that level of consciousness in order for us to, you know, make the right decisions. But when it comes to you know, reconnecting with that next generation, we have to, you know, we have to be the example. You know, we have to be that example, and we have to show them that there's another way. You know, we have to show them there's another way. And sometimes you have to take them to certain environments, you know, even so you have to take them. That's why I said earlier, if whether it's taking them abroad or even taking them to see how the prison system is set up, the way the prison system looks like, seeing people share their stories. You understand what I'm saying? Like, for example, I've obviously, this year I'm celebrating like the 10th year anniversary of the Man in the Mirror documentary, you know, where I told my story, you know, and a lot of the times you need these role models or brothers and sisters who've been in certain leadership or have gone through certain life experiences in order to make that connection, you know.
I like that you use that word, leadership. I'm big on leadership.
Yeah.
I'm a leader within my family. I'm a leader in the community. And it didn't come easy. Some things were inherited. I'm glad you brought up morals. Peace be upon Dr. Amos Wilson. Leadership. I think that goes to the esteem issue that we were talking about earlier in Maslow hierarchy of needs. I realize a lot of people are just followers, which is a good thing, bad thing, determines on who you follow, because I am a follower of Malcolm X, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. But what I see now is young people leading other young people to their demise. I see the blind leading the blind. And I know it hasn't always been this way. I'm a little older than most, you know, where I can remember a time where the guard you now, you know, the force multiplier wasn't the first resolve if you had a conflict. In fact, in my coming up, if you had an issue with somebody, if you grabbed that, your OGs would tell you, you don't need it. You don't be no coward. I'll come with you. Make sure you get a fair one. but we not doing that. I see there's been a paradigm shift where folks don't understand about subconscious programming and how it's used against us. As you brought up the Pied Piper, the manipulation of the music, the manipulation of the images. Even when you said take the young people to the prisons, some of these dudes look at it as a badge of honor now. I mean, I've unfortunately been through there, and I know why it is. It's a psychosis that a lot of our brothers have in the streets, whether they want to be honest with it or not. What did I come up with? The first time you ever get incarcerated, you're scared. You're scared. You don't know who you're going to run into. You don't know what's going to happen to you. When you get there and that environment doesn't meet the expectation of your fear, your guards come down a little bit. Then you meet another person who's afraid and nobody's talking about their fear, but you can tell by just how they link up and click up. And now they got a little group. They try to find folks that are fearful and oppress them. And what happens is, since they didn't get oppressed, given into the initial fear that they had the first time getting locked up, they think they the big man and they harm weaker people. And what happens? Recidivism kicks in because they get in, come home, and now the second time you really don't have that fear because you've been locked up before and ain't nothing really happened to you. Second time you go back, you may meet some new dudes or the same dudes that you was locked up with before. And then it becomes habitual. And I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm telling you what I know because I see it time and time again. Because, of course, when I was in there, I was tested, but I've never been a coward. And I saw the cowardice in those who tried to test me. And because I wouldn't cower down and wouldn't punk out, they're like, hold up, this dude is different. And then when dudes did their homework, where you from? From Fulton Street. Where who you know? Everybody. And then when you find out, like, no, he's not a sucker on Fulton Street. But that doesn't determine who I am as a man. How I treat people and my moral character is my barometer. But when you get to these prison systems, these dudes don't talk about those nights they cry. They never talk about the fear. All they say is, I had the phone. I was running the house. I was doing this. I was doing that. And that is true. You may have been doing that. But that was with somebody else's permission. Because some of these brothers been going to jail since they were children. And you can't tell me no child going to jail for the first time was not scared. You tell me that, you're lying. You are a liar. Because people are afraid to go to a new school or start a new job. So ain't no way in hell you're not going to be afraid going to jail. But like I said, when it's not as bad as you told yourself it was in your head, then you start to get more comfortable with it. And then you don't mind going back. So if a person is always hearing glory stories about being locked up, about the jail fights and running things and eating this, that, and the third, we was eating good. And, you know, how do you use jail as a deterrent?
Absolutely.
When it's celebrated in their group.
Yeah. And that's why they you know, a lot of parents or just those who are seen as role models or those who are guardians need to, you know, give that child the honest. I think, you know what, a lot of our brothers and sisters sometimes have that fear of, you know, actually being honest, maybe because obviously, you know, those young people might be at a stage of, you know, being fragile and so forth, but you have to show them the other side of things, or what goes on when you do get locked up, the things which you ain't gonna want to experience, like being sexually abused, physically abused, you know, whatever the case may be. You have to show them that other side. It's just like if you take them to the continent and you show them how they live out there and so forth, you have to give them that other perspective in order for them to understand that. And that's not just with the younger generation, but that's also with brothers who have not left the hood. You have to kind of, you know, you have to show them, you know, the other side of the fence, or, you know, what really happens, you know, in you know, because a lot of us could be ignorant when we don't travel. You know, even those, whether they live in the UK and they don't go to other parts of the UK, or they live in the US and they don't travel to other states, or, you know, it's opportunity. You know, there's opportunity to grow, and also traveling can also be seen as something which is therapeutic, because you're coming out of the concrete jungle. You're coming out of that environment, which might be so claustrophobic, cluttered, and that's, because a lot of times when we think about therapy, we're always thinking of some sort of Eurocentric model,
Yes.
But when we take our brothers or even sisters outside that environment, we a lot of these places can be very therapeutic to travel, just give us a different perspective.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I love going to the places with turquoise waters, white sands, warm temperatures, beautiful.
Yeah, and if people like me and you, brother, if we didn't, we will continue being that self-destructive problem.
Yes.
We will continue to be part of that problem, of being that self-destructive ticking time bomb, just ready to put ourselves in a situation where we are when it comes to systemic racism and oppression, we're almost helping them with their plan.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. It gave me a thought. Again, everybody, I'm not a know-it-all. I just read a lot. But there's a man named Frank Blackmore, a sociologist from Ohio, and he came up with the term, Black people are their own worst enemy. You'll never hear me use that. I don't use that because I understand where it comes from. What's the thought process and idea behind it? He said, due to us being imbeciles, our childlike behavior, we need white folks to control us. He said, because if we're left to our own devices, we don't know how to take care of ourselves. And that's what he said, leave them alone by themselves. They're their own worst enemy. That's Frank Blackmore. You can find that in a book called The Condemnation of Blackness by Dr. Khalil Gibran Muhammad, who was once the director of the Schomburg Cultural Research Center in Harlem on 135th Street. You ever in Harlem, check that out. It's right next door. It's named after Arthur Schomburg, who was the teacher of Dr. John Henry Clark. And it's right next to the library where Dr. Clark and Atul Schomburg used to study. All of this history we have at our fingertips, and we always ask, why are we like this? I'm telling you why we're like this. But I'm glad you brought that point up, because when I went to Africa, and again, this is about us being whipping boys. What we see in Africa, well, you're in the UK, and I don't know if you have the same culture, but West African culture is the same thing that we see in the South. Take your shoes off in the house.
Yeah, I'm Nigerian, so yeah.
Right, that's right. I keep forgetting you're from UK, but your family's from Nigeria.
Yeah. My parents were born and raised there, and for me, yeah, I've traveled back home. So
let me ask you real quick, because again, whipping boys and Superman, I want to touch on dating real quick. I want to touch on dating in Nigeria. Do women have a problem with working?
Nah.
Do they think a man is supposed to take care of them and supply all the needs?
Well, times it's a shift, because a lot of people have adopted the
Westernized philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. They've adopted the Western mindset, and it's not just they've adopted not just because of the programming, but because a lot of the governments on the continent are adopting those models
and giving incentives for women not to work and things like that.
Well, not even just that. Just in regards to cost of living and prices being raised, and also the issue with the currency right now, with the currency, the breakdown of the currency and so forth. So there's West African women, especially like Nigerian women, who are in jobs. That's a common thing right now, because they.
No, I was gonna say real quick. I asked that because I've been to Africa 4 times, and I see women and children working. I see the family working.
Yeah.
not
They have
just
their own business. They have their own. There's some of them work, as in they might work for somebody else, but some of them, you know, there's another percentage of you know, African families where, you know, they have their business, you know, and they might be working, especially when it comes to what's it, culinary arts, or yeah, food businesses.
yeah. So I say that because in terms of folks thinking that we should be Superman now, here's where it goes. The new conversation in terms of black men and black women dating now, because it wasn't even like this in the 90s. This is something new in the past 5-10 years, I would say, that the man should do everything financially. I'm glad that you brought up the economic thing, because what many people don't know, dealing with COVID, that reset was actually an economic reset predicted by the World Economic Forum.
Of course.
There's so much going on behind the scenes that everyday black folks are not privy to, because for one, we have little interest in it. For two, those of us that have interest have a hard time finding reputable publications, real information, firsthand knowledge, you know, hearing it from the horse's mouth. I say that because now here it is. Let's fast forward to the black men being Superman. We're supposed to be the protectors, the providers, the nurturers, the healers, the cleanup men. We're supposed to do everything, while our counterparts, our sisters, our beautiful black sisters, some of them are of the mindset that they should just sit home and just live their best life and spend our money. And for me, it's not realistic. And I'm just speaking for me. I definitely want to know your opinion and the opinion of our folks in the audience.
Well, there's a few variables.
Right. And what I was going to say real quick before I pass you the mic is, am I, as a black man, supposed to bust my hump 12 hours a day to make sure that and I'm not even talking about family, I'm talking about who you're dating. Dating. Not your children's mother, not your wife, not alimony, just somebody you met a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. You're supposed to pay her rent, pay for her to go to Ruth Chris, though she never ate outside of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like, are we really supposed to pay for all of that and then take on every issue that she has with the baby father? You're supposed to fight the baby father, the ex-husband, the supervisor on the job. Like, is that realistic? All of these things that are expected from black men to be this new form Superman in society.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's so many layers to unpack when it comes to that, because once again, we have to look at whether it's a black man or black woman. When you do engage, when you do decide that you court someone and that person to become your potential complement, you have to ask yourself, am I going to support someone who cannot support themselves? Number one, because whether it's a black man or black woman, are you gonna? Because if I can support myself, you can't support yourself. You know, when we come together as complements, we're supposed to be coming together with our strengths, but as well as our weaknesses. You know, or come together with our strengths to work on our weaknesses. You understand where I'm coming from? So I think I think every brother is going to do what they feel works for them, but at the same time, I lost my trail of thought because there was something else I was going to say. Because for me, there's so many
tons of variables. I get it.
I could get into so many different chambers with this one, man.
Go in.
Yeah,
we have to unpack this and let it loose, because folks are not really having honest conversations.
Yeah, because but then again, people also need to ask themselves and be honest. Am I getting with that person? Is this just a transactional situation? Because some folks are not necessarily authentic in their thought process. So a lot of people have ulterior motives. So when they're trying to look for somebody, a lot of times it's like looking for help. A lot of times you're looking for someone to help. It's almost like a crutch. You're looking for someone to be your helpmate, when we're supposed to be coming together as complements, where we come together with our strengths to work on our weaknesses, but not, you know, as a black man, first and foremost, before trying to look for somebody, you need to ask yourself, can I take care of myself? You know, and if you feel you can, if you could, you know, when I say take care of yourself, pay your own bills, you know, pay to keep a roof over your head, you know, you got some sort of income coming through and so forth. If you know, and you're healthy spiritually, mentally, and physically, if you know you tick those boxes and so forth, then you are gonna look for that you're just gonna automatically attract women who are on the same page as you, and it's gonna be a natural bond. But in regards to, you know, maybe sisters who, you know, because we all struggling, but there's also sisters what may struggle with taking care of themselves. You have to ask yourself, are you prepared to get in that situation? You gave the examples of, you know, like issues with the children's father, or issues with them not being able to pay their rent. Because at the end of the day, you have to look at it from a point of view. Okay, if I'm going to take on this and I'm going to be paying your rent, I've only met you for a few months, this, that, and the other. When I say what are they prepared to do? Because sometimes the man doesn't necessarily and this is the thing, the man doesn't always necessarily may need the financial support. Sometimes it's like emotional support.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes it's emotional support.
I like a good back rub.
Huh?
I like a good back rub. I don't need
yeah. Emotional support. Or okay, for example, emotional support, or someone like us who have our initiatives and so forth, you know, where they expect, for you to bring the money in and so forth. Okay, so what, are you gonna post those flyers? Are you gonna send it are you gonna create that mailing list for us? You understand? You know, some certain things which could, if you're gonna stay at home, I'm sure you could do that. You understand what I'm saying? Because for myself, I clean. You know, I cook, I make my food, I clean and stuff like that. The only thing I can't do is breastfeed. So you obviously, so at the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves. And for men or women to be upset with, you know, this type of conversation, to me is ludicrous. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous because it's about being honest. Yeah, you can see yourself as the prize. Yeah, you can see yourself the prize. There's nothing wrong with that. You understand where I'm coming from. But I think the problem we get caught up in is the gender war. That's the issue. We get so caught up in the gender war rather than having honest conversations and seeing if we're compatible, or, you know, working towards preparing certain exercises when you're in that courting stage. So like, it might be like love language exercises, you know, it could be those things. Love language exercises always helps, because you might kind of make a list up and see which ones are your priorities, or where your moral compass lies, and you might exchange notes, and it might be complete opposites where you think, I can't work with this. Then you just, you know, you don't decide, then you won't engage. You just, you know, you would have to then go back to the drawing board and just work more on, you know, attracting the right person for you, you know. But the problem is, a lot of folks, I think today, a lot of brothers and sisters get into these relationships more or less to show the whole social media world, rather than getting into the relationships because they want to really grow from them. You know, a lot of people like to show, I'm in a relationship, and they'll quickly post up, I'm in a relationship. You understand what I'm saying? And to me, so everybody is obviously entitled to do what they want to do and so forth. But sometimes it's about work. You know, we need to keep certain things away from social media until we know we're mature and ready, you know, to present. This is a solid union which cannot be broken.
Right. I agree with that 100%. And I'm glad you brought up social media, because it's going to take me to my next thing I want to discuss. The one thing I say about social media is that in school, we were separated. You had your advanced class for the gifted children, and then you had the kids in the basement. And social media put all of us together. Now we're in the same class, and you got the basement kids thinking they're about as intelligent as the gifted kids. Now, no knock on the children who went to school in the basement. You know, your classes in the basement. Trust me, they waited till I got to the 12th grade, 11th grade, my last year. They even took me from the top class, tried to put me in the basement classes because of my behavior, though. It's crazy. I say that because we just spoke about black men and black women, you know, our relationship, our compliment. For those who don't know, when we talk about compliment, we mean completing each other. Not, oh, you look nice today, you look nice today, because there's two different compliments. We're talking about completing each other in terms of our goals and our life direction. Because you brought up a lot of good points that I want to spin the block and revisit. But now we got this alpha beta conversation that goes on amongst black men with dealing with one another, where some proposed alpha men say, if you're a stepfather, you a sucker, you know, that you shouldn't be taking care of another man's children, this, that, and the third. Everybody got their position, their thought process, their ideas, but everybody don't have the same vision and thought process. It's going to vary in some way. What's your thoughts on men raising other men's children? Do you think that's something for a sucker? Do you think it's real men? Only real men do that? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is I don't have no statistical data to hand for this particular conversation, but one thing I will say is let's look at the amount of women today, 30 plus, yeah, who have no children. Are they, you know, just be realistic, especially with men our age, you know. So if you are, if there's men our age who are planning to court, you know, because I don't really agree with going under a certain age, but you know, I'm not going to say each their own, because I feel, you know, when we start going there, then we're stepping into pedophilia, you know, territory. But I think for me, you know, it's just being realistic. There's a number of sisters with children, and you may find yourself in a position where you want to settle down, and yeah, you want to settle down with that woman and try to start a new life with them. You may have children with them, you may not. You know, some of them might have 1 or 2 children, 3, 4, depends on what you can handle. You know, if you don't want to handle it, then no one's forcing you. No one's forcing your hand to go there. But I wouldn't say it's a for a man. I wouldn't really say it's a sucker situation. But one thing I will say is certain conversations need to be had, because we need to know, where is the father? Is that father present? Is he contributing? Because, you know, you find a lot of these situations where the father is not present, or if the father is present, he's not contributing or not paying enough child support, or whatever the case may be, and so forth. So they have to rely and depend on you. So I think for, you know, the sisters, it's about, you know, if they, I think just like men have to take certain advice, I think certain sisters need to also be mindful. Okay, if I'm going to get in this situation, can I support myself? Is it, because at the end of the day, before you get into another relationship with a brother, yeah, you're gonna have to support yourself. Or because if you ain't gonna support yourself, how are you gonna survive? You're gonna have to take care of not just yourself, you have to take care of the children as well. If a man is coming into if the man is coming into your world and so forth, he should just be there to add, just to add. You know, it's not to add. It's not him. You know, he should not be when I say a replacement, I'm talking about where it's a burden, not for the child to be a burden, but in regards to the financial burden, it's about combining resources. You know, whether that's monetary resources or just combining whatever resources in order to help that union, you know, stay afloat. You know, but when men use the whole alpha and beta situation and so forth, some brothers need to sit their asses down and so forth, because a lot of us talk, a lot of us speak from a perspective of being bitter. A lot of us still suffer from arrested development. So we, a lot of us are speaking from a bitter point of view because we, a lot of us are not healed. So we're going to speak from a place of bitterness, because it didn't work for you. So just because it didn't work for you, does it mean that it's not going to work for the next brother?
Right.
You obviously saying that next brother might have got all of his ducks in order. They might have not just their finances in order, but they might have their they have emotional stability is on point. Maybe the spiritual well-being is on point. Their mental, they worked on, healing themselves in certain areas, and they just might be a lot more resilient than those brothers using that whole beta. Yeah.
And that's why you my brother, because that's my mindset. First of all, I have a very close relationship.
We earth signs anyway, brother. That's my big brother, but we earth signs.
So I've always been close with my father since a little boy to this day. My father's my dude. I love him to life. Salute Pop Dukes. I was close with my father's father, but my mother was married to someone else, and it was my stepfather. Good dude, good to my mother, but that was my mother's husband. He wasn't there to replace my father. He was there because he had an interest in my mother. They saw something in each other that lasted. Like, if you ever want to talk about black love, they was the epitome of it. Anybody who knew my mother knew her husband, and vice versa. Almost every picture of my mother, he's in the picture or he took the picture. And I'm saying, as a child who lived in the house with them, the love wasn't fake. My step pops was a good dude. Wasn't no sucker. He wasn't like my pops. Like, my pops a bravado dude. He walk in the room, he in the room. Anybody know my pops? I'm a reflection of him, strong men. I say that, right? Because to be a stepfather doesn't necessarily make you a sucker. And when I see that, it hurts me, because I know real bona fide gangsters in the street who are stepfathers. And when I watch the internet, and that's why I said, you brought up social media and it put me in that mindset. When I watch the internet, it's easy to be tough from the comforts of your living room.
Absolutely, brother. Preach.
It's easy to sit in your bedroom in the comforts where you can lock your door, you can lock your apartment door, lock your bedroom door. Shoot, go in the bathroom and type something crazy.
Yeah.
But would you dare tell these real men who stepped up where other men have failed? Would you tell him he a sucker for being what should be acknowledged as a pillar in the community? Not saying all stepfathers is good. No.
Absolutely.
That I am not saying.
Yeah.
But what
some of them could be predators. So yeah.
Right. Thank you, brother. But what I'm saying is, it takes a special kind of man to step in and take care of a life that he didn't even create. He has no obligation to this child except to accept her as a package deal. Because what some brothers don't talk about, they want to be leaders, but they're not qualified to lead at home. And that's why them and their baby mother didn't work out. They'll say all these pretty words because, to be honest, women fall in love with words. Men fall in love through their eyes. But once you peel those layers back, where are we standing? You know,
actions really.
He like her because she got a big butt. She like him because he could kick that smooth talk. But when it's time to show and prove, what is your position? You said that we should have a baby, and if we have a baby, you're gonna do this, that, and the third. Well, I'm pregnant. What you gonna do? And he bounced.
But
what I want to say, right, brother Ola, because I just got to get this off my heart, and I want people to understand this. When we do that bullshit, the children suffer.
Absolutely.
The children suffer. So we talk about healing the community, but how about prevention is better than the cure? If we don't create a damaged person, we won't have to fix the problem 10, 20, 30 years down the line with a 20, 25-year-old, 30-year-old female who may have a resentment because she don't have a relationship with her father. She don't know who her father is. Or this boy who want to run around molesting little boys because he got molested because he didn't have a father in the home to protect him, to show him what manhood is. When I hear people talk, I hear the selfishness.
Yeah.
See, I grew up in a big family.
Bitterness as well.
I don't know how to be selfish like that. And if I don't give you something, that's because the resources may be allocated for somebody else in my family. I may have to help out a niece, a nephew, a brother, sister, cousin, my children. I'm grandpa now, so I got grandkids. So my resources aren't that expendable. And for me, it's financially irresponsible just to be showing how much money I got by just throwing money around to prove to somebody that I'm worthy to be in their world.
Yeah.
Stepfathers. I would never say I was really a stepfather. I just dated women with children. Right? And had I got with somebody, I dare somebody to tell me I'm a sucker for raising a decent person, giving them the same love and guidance I give my own children. Because my daughter sent me this heartfelt TikTok yesterday and just thanking me for never abandoning her. My daughter about to be 26. That means so much to me. That meant so much to me. I'm going to post it on my social media page today or tomorrow. But this is what all children need. Children need, if the biological parent is not going to do the right thing, don't knock somebody for trying to be a positive influence, because we all got work to do in the community. And guess what? That may be that person's assignment in the community to help this woman with her children. Because guess what? Me and this woman may be more compatible. And though she has 3 children, she may follow my leadership. She may like my leadership style and say, you know what? I see this brother going somewhere and he could take me places, and I got a particular skill to help him get to that next level. Yeah, she got children, but guess what? If we show them what a loving couple looks like, chances are we're going to minimize the dysfunction and how they perceive the opposite sex and how they should engage. But as long as we as adults feed into that gender war around children, you know, your mother ain't shit, you know, your father ain't shit, we're doing more harm than good.
Can I?
Okay, bro.
I'm going to interject because I know we're going to get to the event and stuff like that. But just to add to what you're saying as well, I think also there are certain sisters out there who sometimes fear someone or not used to someone because they've, you know, there's certain sisters there who've had so much heartache. Some of them are used to men who've physically abuse them or emotionally abuse them or however. So when someone comes along which has those good qualities, sometimes they don't know how to handle that. They don't know how to handle that, and they do certain things which are so self-sabotaging, where they end up losing a good brother. You understand what I'm saying? I've seen it played out. Even I've gone through it, you know, where they've, you know, where I've stepped in and I've assisted in this in certain areas, and you know, didn't feel appreciated and so forth. And a lot of the times we miss out on good brothers and sisters due to the fact of our you know, our fears or our selfishness, you know. So I just wanted to add to what you've just put out there. But yeah, when you're ready, you know, I know we're gonna get to the event and stuff.
Definitely. No, you know why? Because all of this, these conversations I haven't seen. I'm quite sure people are having them behind closed doors. Shout out to my sister K Fighter, my sister Farness on the check. And these are some of the conversations that we kind of have on a regular basis. You know, particularly me and my sister K Fighter, we have these conversations offline because she's in a successful marriage. You know, she knows her family. We're big on our family history. And I think Farness hit it on the head, you know, about good fathers and good father figures. You know, people shouldn't act as if children don't deserve these things, because everybody deserves positive influences in their life. And unfortunately, even some adults. So back to what you're speaking about, bro, the selfishness, you know, people fumbling a good relationship. It's because they haven't seen it. They don't know what it looked like. They don't know what a dad fighting everything just to be with that child looks like. Oh, your mother don't want to drop you off, so this is why you ain't see me in 10 years. Oh, me and your mother having issues. I'm be honest with you. I remember the first time I was told I couldn't see my daughter, my oldest daughter. You know what I did, right? Jumped in the cab, went over there, knocked on the door. It's me. Open the door. Right in the living room, in front of the whole family. This is my child. I get the final say so. It's only one father, and that's me. But what does it mean to be a father? And I demonstrated that in all facets, even to the point to where I don't kiss nobody till I will argue and fight with mama, grandmama, uncle, big brother, everybody. Over mine, yes. And when you show a child that you'll go against everybody for them, there's a newfound respect on what a father looks like and what manhood looks like. But tell you the truth, my children think I'm crazy because they don't see me back down from anybody, especially when it comes to them. I don't back down. And this is what our children need to see. Funny thing about hunting, right? We know it's a European thing, but you got to understand the psychology of why European men take their sons hunting, to teach their sons bravery. These little kids get to see their father challenge a lion, challenge a bear, and then explain why we doing this. Because there got to be a method to the madness. And then the child sees his father as the bravest man that he's known. Not just that, not just on an interpersonal relationship, because we can't negate that we got a society that shows white people as being brave. Even though some of us with our own personal interactions, we know that's just television. We know that ain't true. However, to their children, to their psyche, my dad is the bravest. My dad is the greatest. They get into trouble. What's the first thing they do? They call dad. But what do? First sign of trouble, we out. Woman says she gets mad at you. You can't see the baby no more. You use that as your exit strategy. Children come 20 years later, 25 years later. Where you was, Dad? Your mother wouldn't let me see you. You let somebody prevent you from seeing yours? That's a coward statement within itself. Real men gonna fight for this. And that's just a fact. So if a dude don't want to fight for his, and you meet, like I said, you know, men, we're visual. So if we see a nice looking sister, she look good, and we want to be with her, and we get to know, and we find out she has children, take out on a few dates, head seem right, and you meet her child, and you find out she got a good child. Like, you know what, her son ain't this bad. Or even if she got a bad child, say, you know what, this kid needs structure and discipline. What's wrong with being a man? That's what leadership is. Leadership identifies the problem, then step in the gap to correct it. And I get it. I got my own bloodline.
Yeah.
I got my own bloodline. But I've never been against dating a woman with children. And to say that's a sucker move, that's one of the most sucker statements I've ever heard. That in itself. Because check this out. If she got children, you get to see what kind of mother she is by how she interacts with her own children to determine whether you want to have a child or not. Because guess what? You have a child with her and you find out she ain't a good mother. Now, by this time, you jammed up. You like, oh, man, why have a baby with this dummy? But you didn't vet.
Yeah.
Y'all
you didn't use the spiritual antenna discernment, you know, given unto us by our ancestors. Use your spiritual antenna.
Yeah. Yeah. So here it is as we move forward and we talk about, are we whipping boys? Because in many facets of society, we're the scapegoats. To some women, we're the reason these young boys don't know how to behave and why they're killing each other. To some women, we're the reason why Black women are being attacked in the streets because Black men are not protecting them. We're the reason drugs are prevalent in this country. There's all this stuff. We're the whipping boys. It's our fault. Everything wrong with the Black community is the Black man's fault, as if we're the only people that live in the community. Then on the other side, we're expected to be Superman. We're expected to step in every gap we find and fill it. Woman ain't got no father for a kid. All right, just add Tad, instant family. Oh, we need somebody to go out there and fight police brutality. Add Tad. You jump in front of the guns. You know, there's so much stuff. A woman's late on her rent. You meet her at the club one night. Next week, she like, yo, I'm 3 months backed up in rent. Could you help me out? Like, what? Help me pay rent? I don't even know where you live. Like, this is a reality that I know brothers go through because we have these conversations. I tell you, I know somebody that paid her sister rent and then got in a fight with her baby father and took her baby father's side. Why he ain't help her pay the rent? The craziness.
I've been there, brother. I've been there, brother. But one thing I've learned is don't never expose your pocket. And I think you know, because, you know, I like to try and help. I've been like that from when I was younger. I've tried to help people, just like as I got used to receiving help, you know, it took me like 10 years. It's been 10 years now. Before 10 years, I just didn't like, you know, because obviously people try to make you feel guilty. But at the same time, no matter whether it's a black man or woman, you have to, before you get in any situation, you need to be able to take care of yourself. You need to be able to take care of yourself and so forth. So I once again, as you mentioned, it's about discernment. We as men are not, you know, because women have been taught to vet, you know, but we are not really taught how to vet. Because as you said, we look at the aesthetics. We looking at the old, you know, the rump, big rump and stuff like that. And we're like, yeah, I want to hit that. And afterwards, it could be the Exorcist of Emily Rose. You understand what I'm saying? The black version. So you understand the black version. So you really have to use discernment. But you know, that's why we're on this podcast, OG Wisdom. You know, when you use that, when you go through certain life experiences, it's supposed to give you that wisdom in order to be able to tap into your ancestral gift called discernment, in order for you to make better choices. So even if you ask a brother, sister, why are you single, but have, you know, an issue with them being single, this and sometimes certain brothers and sisters are working on themselves. You understand what I'm saying? Because some person could be single. Some brothers and sisters could be single for 5 to 8 years. And you could be in and out like relationships 3 times within 8 years. You understand what I'm saying? Like, who's the problem? Because there's always a common denominator.
Yes. And people don't see that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because the work is so important. The work is so important.
Absolutely.
And what it is confronting your own insecurities, your own inadequacies. I'm gonna tell you, I've started like working on myself back in the 90s. And one of the hardest things I found to do was sit in silence and reflect on decisions that I've made, things that I have done that I know wasn't right. Brother Siraj, sitting with myself in silence and thinking about my mistakes, it literally felt like the world could see it. To the point I didn't want to think about it, because I felt that if I thought about it, people can see it. But if I don't think about it, I don't ponder it. If I don't ponder it, I don't analyze. If I don't analyze, I don't critique. If I don't critique, I don't see a problem. If I don't see a problem, I don't see a resolution. That was the hardest thing. But once I've learned to sit and realize mistakes I made and how it was a pattern, it became habitual thinking. The way I thought in itself was the problem. That violence was the solution. Oh, you can't disagree with me. Somebody do this, something I don't like, punch them in the face. Yo, if they take it further, get the ratchet. That.
Yeah, that's how you go. That's how we work. Because we, me and brother Ted, we come from the street life. So, you know, that's how I settled certain situations. So, yeah.
Yeah, we really, and people, this Tad that people see right now hasn't always been this Tad. I've never been a sucker, but to have a higher level of thinking process. I'm not the same dude I was 5 years ago. Absolutely. And I'm definitely not the dude that I'm going to be in the next 5 years. Absolutely. I'm constantly growing. And This is why I refer to books. This is why I cite writings and talk, because I've done a lot of reading, research, introspection, and meditation. And for us as a community, though there is a gender war going on, again, please read Willie Lynch's letter.
Yeah.
Google it, Willie Lynch's letter. He talks about dividing us, light against dark, old against young, male against female, rich against poor, south side against north side, east side against west side, Brownsville versus Bed-Stuy. We find every little reason to be divided instead of all the reasons society has given for us to unite. Yeah. Even when we look at rappers beefing, it gets amplified by a media outlet we don't control. The whole East Coast, West Coast thing, everybody knew it was just between two former friends having a public disagreement, but they turned it into a coastal war that made us lose two influential, iconic brothers, one who was my personal childhood friend, the Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac. Me and Biggie was in from known each other since single digits when you couldn't leave the block. He lived across the street from my cousin, and that's how I knew him. He was my cousin play friend from across the street, back when your parents had to take you. And it was only 2 blocks away. That's how far back we go. I got a picture of Biggie and Pierce 11, a picture of him and his homeboy Oli standing there. Anytime you watch a documentary, they talk about one of his closest friends, Oli. That is right up under my window. My brother's in the picture, my cousin's in the picture, but of course they got cropped out. But that's how close we was. But I lost a childhood friend due to outside influences, due to people not having the wherewithal to just mind your business. Stay out of personal stuff and stop making it bigger than it is, because it's like when brothers have a conflict, that sells. If 2 brothers could unite, that's a problem. They don't want to see brothers uniting. And what I found so crazy, right? What I find so crazy is how everybody attacked J. Cole for apologizing to Kendrick for making this. When I thought that was one of the biggest things you can do. Public apologies. Public apologies and change behavior is the most sincere form of apologies. But he got ridiculed for doing what men do. Brother, I was wrong. I apologize.
Yeah, we ain't used to that. You understand? That's gonna go over many people's head. You understand what I'm saying? Because we still stuck on that whole ego, that masculine, always having to be on. I don't know. It's just crazy, man. But
again, that's why I asked: are we the whipping boy or are we Superman? Because again, as I talked about, I'm not throwing up the Illuminati. I'm just talking about the pyramid of Maslow. You do that, and everybody, he's Illuminati. No.
Yeah. We need to know when to turn the on and off switch when it comes to that.
Right. What I'm talking about is Maslow hierarchy of needs. Where do you fit in? Are you the whipping boy or are you Superman? Who are you? Self-actualization. Because as Black men, we have to create a new identity. We used to be the Dr. Kings. We used to be the Malcolm X's. We used to be the Mr. Nixon on my block. This is an elderly man. I won't call him elderly. He's just older. Mr. Nixon, almost like the father of the block. But he wasn't the only father on the block. But Mr. Nixon stood in his front yard. He kept the 38 with him. You come on the block with that foolishness. Mr. Nixon chasing you off the block. You had Mr. Dave. You had Mr. Dudley, I just went to his funeral last month. You had Mr. Pinkston. You had a brother named Leroy. Like, we had Mr. Juicy. We had fathers on the block. And this is just my block. We're not even talking about growing up on my father's block, where men were present, where it wasn't no question on what Black manhood is, because men checked men, women respected men. The children feared the men. So now when you fast forward, nobody fears Black men per se. They got to fear you as an individual and not as a collective today. That's what they do. They'll see Brother Tao, he ain't no joke. I heard about him. He a real OG. But then we'll see a cousin or brother of mine and won't have the same respect level. Yeah. And when I came up, we were taught to respect all men. Even, and I'm gonna give you the mic after this, even to the point to where the things I do in the community, the young G's now was like, yo, you was always an OG. Ever since we was little, you was always like this. You always showed us love and respect. I tell them, because all boys grow to be men and all men are worthy of respect. I only did that for y'all to show y'all how you should be treated and how you should treat people. And this is why I could walk through any hood with my head held high, because I showed young men coming behind me what manhood looks like. I don't play with them. I don't play with children to the capacity where they think they're on my level. I may joke with them a little bit, but there's boundaries we have to have. Yeah. Everything, And I just had to say that because we have to reclaim our manhood as men. So, and this speaks to your project. on the man in the mirror. We talk about healing the community as Black men. If you want to be a leader, start with the man in the mirror. So with that, bro, I want you to talk a little more about your project and the upcoming tour you have, your U.S. tour of your Man in the Mirror project.
Yeah, so yeah, I appreciate that, brother. I know this is the third time I've Tad's invited me on the platform. Yeah, we had a bit of a change, so I've got like well, first and foremost, my name is Siraj Oluboyega Takumba Odukunle. For those what don't know, I am the founding member of the Man in the Mirror project and My Brother's Keeper International, which basically both work hand in hand. The Man in the Mirror project presents a presentation called The Unpopular Truth Behind the Black Man's Abuse, which is basically gonna take a deep dive into how systemic racism and oppression emasculates the Black man in the Western society, and also condemns Black men's vulnerability. So it's basically giving our brothers and sisters more of an insight of how the system plays a huge part in the ongoing trauma which the Black man experiences, but also touches on what solutions and resources can be offered, or some just basically given advice and African centered framework which can support our brothers in their healing journey and their journey in decolonizing the mind, body, and soul. So yeah, I'm coming out to host this tour, the Unpopular Truth Behind the Black Man's Abuse, which starts from the 8th of June. I will be speaking in Dallas, Texas, which will be my first location. Then after, I'll be speaking in Atlanta, Georgia on I think it's the 23rd, Saturday the 23rd or 22nd of June. Then I'll be speaking in St. Petersburg, Florida on the 29th of June. And I'll be speaking in Brooklyn, New York on the 6th of July, Detroit, Michigan on the 7th of July, and on the 13th, I'll be speaking in Sacramento, California. So I'll be moving around. I'm hoping for those brothers and sisters who are here today, tuning in to the OG Wisdom podcast, are able to attend one of the locations. The event admission fee is $15 beforehand and $20 on the day. This is an event you cannot miss, and it's not just an event for the Black man, it's also an event for the Black family, because you may have uncles, brothers, fathers who this information could obviously support. It could be helpful, because we're going to actually take a deep dive in what plays a part in our vulnerability, so we all get the understanding of what goes on. So these conversations, just like the conversation we're having today, is imperative. Same thing with what I will be coming to present to you in the US.
Yeah. What's some of the misconceptions you think you received? Because again, it's the unpopular truth. What's some of the things people thought your presentation would be about? One of those misconceptions, and what do you want people to walk away with?
I appreciate you for you. I love you, brother.
I love you too,
I love
bro.
you, my Capricorn brother. Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing that up. I think the misconception is I kind of get where certain people might be reluctant. If we're going to speak about the sisters first, who may one, the event is just for Black men. That's one. Second of all, that I'm going to be another Kevin Samuels talking about bashing Black women, or saying it's just Black men what have got it bad. That's one of the misconceptions. Or I think thirdly, the misconceptions of this is just an event which is just talking. It's not going to benefit us because there's no solutions. And it's easy for someone to say that who's not attended, you know, and anyone can, and that's the thing. That's one thing I love when I was younger. This is a bit of my ego. I love people who underestimate or judge a book by its cover. You know that saying, never judge a book by its cover. And so at least whether you think it's good or bad, at least come to the event first. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's an investment, you know. But those are the misconceptions I get. Like, it's only for solely for black men to attend. Number one, I'm going to be another Kevin Samuels bashing black women. Yeah, or there's no solution.
Yo, I don't got no issues with Kevin Samuels personally. I ain't gonna lie to you. I stopped watching Kevin Samuels once women came on his channel.
Okay.
He was having conversations like this amongst men prior to women coming. Look at some of his very first videos. It was only about frames, footwear, and fragrance. That's it. He always fashioned himself to be an image consultant. How do you as black men show up? What do you look like? Do you show up to a funeral with your Timbs on and your pants sagging? Do you go to a job interview with a hoodie? Like, just how to show up. That's what it was about. And once sisters came, it wasn't about men no more. It was like, why men don't this? Why men? Yeah.
It wasn't that everything he said was 100% wrong. You know, there were
right.
Some he did bring up some good points, but I think sometimes the delivery, because once again, when it comes to black men and women, we're supposed to be speaking life into them, which is one of the most challenging things for certain brothers and sisters to do when they haven't healed from their trauma and if they're still bitter.
What it is, and to give it back to you, because I don't want people to think that we, you know, on some Kevin said, no, I appreciate value where I find it. And this speaks back to what you're doing. It's hard for black men to talk about what pains black men. We're supposed to just suck it up. Some black men can't even say Kevin Samuel's name in public without. There's one sister, you know, one of my closest friends, love of the life. Shout out to her. One day she said, "Oh, you listen to Kevin Samuels? Lose my number." Through a text. I called her. We're not even gonna do this. This me and you. Oh, I don't know what dude just pissed you off, but this me, this Tad you talking to. You know me, but that's that internet fervor that goes on, as we was talking earlier. Social media gives people courage, because I'm like, we neighbors, we damn near grew up together, like over Kevin Samuels, over difference of opinion. And again, black men, we just can't be ourselves for some reason. We can't support who we want to. We have to go with the script. And that's painful, because you walking on eggshells as a strong black man. You don't want to hurt nobody's feelings, but nobody give a damn about you.
The problem is we are conditioned. So we're conditioned to hate each other, but we don't want to hold systemic racism and oppression accountable. And most people are saying, well, you always talk about that, but most people what say that don't understand white supremacy, or let's not even give them that title, because they're not supreme over us. You know, let's call it the white inferiority complex.
That's exactly what it is.
A lot of brothers and sisters don't understand because they don't read, they don't research, and a lot of brothers and sisters speak with a silver spoon in their mouth. You understand? So they would lack the empathy. You know, I work in mental health. Yes, I can sometimes. I'm not going to sugarcoat everything. But at the same time, we have to look into how trauma plays a huge part. You know, because trauma affects the brain. It affects how the brain functions, and when we've come from intergenerational trauma, if we don't have the resources, if the resources have not been introduced to you, you're only going to see things as they appear. You know, I've got slides. I'm a wordsmith as well, man. I've got my sayings, man. If I was to drop dead tomorrow or whatever, people be pulling my words of wisdom and so forth out, because at the end of the day, it's just the same thing with Nelly Fuller. You know, when he said, if you don't understand white supremacy, you know, it's only going to confuse you. I've got a similar that quote inspired me, you know, because we're on that same thought process. We're on that same and at the end of the day, sometimes you have to break things down. You have to dissect things, and you have to break it down to people in smaller chunks in order for it to make sense. Because then, you know, you would get new followers or supporters. Sorry, you will get new supporters which will overstand. Okay, I didn't get it. You know, just like when me and brother Tad, when we had the MBK International meeting the other day, and you were saying sometimes, you know, some of the elders, we have to do things new because we're in a new digital era, so you have to connect with people from the streets. This is a different era. We're in the 21st century, so we're going to continuously reinvent ourselves. We're going to continuously reinvent ourselves and continuously deliver that information in different ways until you overstand, until it resonates.
Yes. Well, brother, all I know, I said I won't keep you on long.
No, man. The information, it's all love, man.
Yeah. And again, real quick, as you cited Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., I had, because those of us who know who Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. is, we always get a tough time. The name of the book is The United Independent Compensatory Code System and Complex and Concept Textbook, right? Of a compensatory counter-racist code. That's the name of the book. It's just call it Dr. Neely Fuller Jr.'s book. Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. For those who may not know who he is the teacher of one of our premier scholar now ancestors, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She wrote the book, The ISIS Papers, the theory of colorism and racism. For those who may not be familiar with her works, it was featured in John Singleton's movie, Baby Boy. In fact, the whole concept of the movie Baby Boy is based on her theory about racism through the book, The ISIS Papers. This is the lineage of Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., who gave birth to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who gave birth to the idea of John Singleton creating the movie Baby Boy, starring Tyrese Gibson, you know, the singer. And if you look at the beginning of the movie, when Tyrese is an adult, still in the womb, the words that come across in the beginning are Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She cites it. And it talks about how they want to minimize Black men to constantly be in a position of boyhood and not manhood. This is why on Good Times, Michael Evans would always say, Dad, boy is a white racist word, because one of the greatest things a male can grow to be is a man, and not just a man, but a strong man, an independent man, a strong leading man, a man who takes his position in leadership. All these things are done intentionally. So when you look at hip hop, you got little this, young that, all of these things are intentional. Because when we came up, we had Granddaddy IU, Big Daddy Kane. You had to be big, you had to be large, you had to be imposing. Because a man that knows who he is a threat to the society. Any Black man that speaks unpopular truths, plug, right? Any Black man that'll speak an unpopular truth is a threat to this society.
Absolutely. So that's me. You know, we've given you a dosage of me and Ty have given you a dosage today. I'm giving you an educational lesson, you know, and it's about learning from each other and so forth. But yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, brother, because I think we shouldn't judge the book by its cover. And yeah, as I said, I'm hoping to see all the brothers and sisters, even the ones who have left comments today, to attend the event.
Right, definitely. We want to see all of y'all in the place.
Yeah,
we want to see everybody up in the place if you can make it. So, yeah, Brother Siraj, closing remarks, because it's beautiful outside. I'm getting ready to hit these New York City streets. Probably hit the Dance Africa Festival over at BAM in Brooklyn. Shout out to everybody who's there or on their way there. It's something you definitely want to experience. That Dance Africa at BAM. You know, I think I'm gonna head out there in a little while just to commune with our folks. So what's the closing remarks you want to give the people, bro?
The closing remarks is nothing lasts forever. And when it comes to searching for a solution, the solution is within. Sometimes you may not notice it yet, but it's all about educating. It's all about education. It's all about educating yourself, you know, and yeah, just continue to educate yourself, you know, read those books, do what you can. The more you educate yourself, the more you're able to maneuver through a systemic racist society.
Yo, see, Gunna, where you at?
Waiting on our dude,
D Rockefeller,
see you next week.
Caesar Leo De Janeiro, Blitz C.
That's my salute to my brother C Gutter since he couldn't make it. C Gutter, where you at? You know, brother Siraj, again, I'm grateful to have you here. I'm grateful you could join us.
Yeah,
I'm getting ready to get up out of here. Again, family, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I want y'all to like, subscribe, share. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it. If you know a sister that got some young men in the family that may need a little bit of this information, if you got a dude who feel bad about being a stepfather, give him this information. If you got somebody who think your brother or your baby father's a sucker for helping you, give him this information. Send them to the OG Wisdom Podcast, where we have difficult conversations and we say the things that need to be said. This is some of the things are getting overshadowed by a lot of foolishness, and we're not playing that game over here. All right. So I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Oh, yeah. Every Thursday at 8 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook. Check me, my sister K Fighter out on Thorough Black Talk Radio. Got me, Sister Keisha, Sister Marcia, my brother Blacksmith. And we have these conversations, but go deeper. Sister Keisha is our political analyst with a wealth of knowledge that be blowing my mind sometimes. Information I give y'all, I'm just scratching the surface. Sister Keisha goes in. Sister Marcia goes in. Brother Blacksmith goes in. If you into the esoteric teachings and you're familiar with transmutation and all that stuff, you definitely want to get with us over there. So I definitely want to shout everybody out. Shout out my sister Farnessa. Shout out to everybody that was on Instagram that I couldn't get into. My brother Chewy the Fever, my big brother Noon the Goon, Big Noon 488, my cousin Wi-Fi Will, everybody who tuned in on IG, my sister Tori from the Terminal. Shout out to you. Everybody who rocks with us, you know what I'm saying, is greatly appreciated. You know, so with that said, man, I really appreciate all y'all. I'm just pulling up my outro so we can be out of here. And y'all go out there and enjoy the day. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got to say to y'all. Peace.
Peace.